Hi up, Ravers. This week's review is a Ratron request. Yes, I asked the Ratrons, Nickel Ratrons, over on Patreon for their requests for a sports-themed review because, the Olympics have started, ain't it? So, I popped all the requests in the rotating review randomiser and it selected Chariots of Fire. So here we go. Yes, Chariots of Fire. And who could ever forget that magnificent, memorable opening sequence? Well, all of you, because that ain't the opening sequence. No, I tricked you. No, it ain't. It opens in London, 1978, some church, for what appears to be Harold Abrams' funeral. And we see Nigel Avers and this other bloke with some old man makeup on. I'll be honest, it ain't great. They're looking a bit Clive Dunn there, ain't they? The pair on them. A lot more convincing nowadays, isn't it, with the old CGI? But back then, it looked a bit naff, that. But then we cut to the iconic scene of them running down the beach. Don't worry, my memory played tricks on me and all. I forgot that. And of course, they're accompanied by the fantastic Vangelis soundtrack. Now, when you hear the John Williams Jaws soundtrack, it makes you think of sharks, doesn't it? And when you hear this Vangelis soundtrack, it makes you think of running. Just got that metronomic quality to it. But I reckon it's up there with the best soundtracks of all time. I think it's absolutely brilliant. And we aren't wanting to bang on about it too much. I reckon the reason it's so good is because it sounds fairly minimalist. It sounds fairly stripped back. Because I've heard orchestras do versions of it, and they overdo it, and it's nowhere near as good. Now, less is more, I reckon. I much prefer the simpler version of Vangelis plonking away on his keyboard. Now, when I said I was doing this film, one of the Ratrons, Watto Snorkers, he got in touch and said, watch out for Vangelis chuffing away on a fag in the video. Got a cup of tea on the side and all there. Yeah, I don't reckon you see John Williams chuffing away on a fag and having a brew on the go during one of his performances. Of course, you wouldn't be able to smoke in the workplace now, would you? No. I'll tell you something else you wouldn't be able to do now, no. And that's running down the beach through the sea. Because the water companies are pumping out that much shit into our water. You wouldn't be able to move for turds. They wouldn't be running, they'd be doing the hurdles of the turtles. And the road Chariots of Fire is basically the story of two blokes. Harold Abrams and Eric Liddell. Now first we get to know Harold Abrams a bit and we flash back to his days at Cambridge University and he seems to enjoy doing a bit of singing. If everybody's somebody, then no one's anybody. But mainly he's a very athletic chap, as evidenced by him beating Nigel Avers in a nickel sprint around this college courtyard. Now here's a little bit of trivia for you. One of the extras in the Cambridge University Student Union Fair was this chap, Derek Pringle, who went on to be an international cricketer for England.
I think we can assume Pringle is going to bowl. It's a lot of work to go through just to field at first slip. And this is a family programme.
Now Abrams very determined and single-minded, highly competitive. And what with his Jewish heritage, he's had to put up with anti-Semitism and all.
Well, there goes your seamite Hugh. A different god.
And maybe that spurs him on, because he's evidently a supreme athlete, winning loads of stuff. Now, at the other end of the country in Scotland, we meet Eric Liddell, a Scottish sprinter, rugby player, and Christian missionary. Now, whether it's because his faith in God gives him some peace, I don't know. But he seems a lot more at one with his sen and the world than Harold Abrams does. Still takes his athletics seriously, but it comes a distant second to God. And because of that, he won't do his sports on a Sunday, no. And tells off other folk who do.
Do you know what day it is?
Yeah.
Tell me then.
Sunday.
Sabbath's not a day for playing football, is it?
No.
Now, Lego is your archetypal muscular Christian, appearing all around the country to preach about God and then demonstrate his physical prowess with his sprinting. And he's evidently very popular, but doesn't seem to court it, whereas Abrams, he seems to revel in his popularity.
She has a kid brother, athletics mad, never stops talking about me, she says.
But Abrams gets a rude awakening after he comes face to face with Eric Liddell and gets soundly beaten by him. Now, he ain't used to this, he's a winner, and he's just had his arse handed to him by Liddell. So this prompts some serious soul searching. Yeah, look how sad and pathetic he looks there, with his knees together. He looks like a sort of shrivelled out biddy there, doesn't he? Very sad. He just needs a tartan blanket over his knees there to complete the picture, doesn't he? Anyway, this prompts him to employ a professional coach, Sam Musabini, played by Ian Holm. Now, professionals in the era of gentlemen amateurs, they're frowned upon, big time. And Musabini is seemingly persona non grata amongst the athletics community.
We are very welcome here, of course, but we do have a strict amateur code.
But his innovative training methods work, and he speeds Abrams up. And both him and Eric Liddell are selected for the Great Britain team as they bid to win some gold medals at the 1924 Paris Olympics. Now, I think it's fair to say that Team GB look very different 100 years later as they head off to the 2024 Paris Olympics. No blazers and straw boaters here, no. They're all wearing flashy Adidas tracksuits, looking very cash. Now, obviously, things have changed over 100 years, ain't they? But we've had some fantastic track and field gold medalists in that time, ain't we? When I were a lad, we had Lynn Davies winning long jump. And then a bit later, we had David Emery winning the hurdles. Not the turtles, thankfully. And then into the 70s, we had Mary Peters winning the pentathlon. She were fantastic. And of course, into the 80s, we got the Cohen-Ovett rivalry, didn't we? But surely the all-time greatest has got to be Daley Thompson, because that's the ultimate challenge, isn't it, the decathlon? Gruelling event with 10 different disciplines over 2 days, and there's a bit of last man standing about it, you know, to be able to get through it all. But yeah, he were everywhere in the 80s, were Daley, weren't he? Doing the business on Superstars, starring in his own computer game, advertising Lucozade. Hey, mind you, I've got a bone to pick with Daley when it comes to Lucozade because of an especially irresponsible advert.
Lucozade now comes in a rather convenient plastic pack.
So my impressionable daughter Maxine tried replicating that with a full plastic bottle of Ribena. And it went bloody everywhere. But she immediately burst into tears, saying, "Oh, but Daley Thompson dropped it on the advert." So it didn't seem right to give her a bollocking. It took me bloody hours to clean that shit up. So thanks for that, Daley. Anyway, where was I? Ah yes, Team GB. Now, just as they're departing for Paris, a reporter drops a bombshell for Eric Liddell.
Mr. Little, sir, what about the qualifying heats on Sunday?
What did you say?
On Sunday, do you think you can beat the Americans?
So that puts him in conflict with his faith. Because he's adamant, as a man of God, that he shouldn't compete on a Sunday.
Sabbath's not a day for playing football, is it?
Now, you might remember the Team GB triple jumper, Jonathan Edwards. He held similar views to that. Very principled man.
When I first started, I had the Never on a Sunday thing, the whole Eric Liddell resonance.
Now, the British Olympic Committee, including the Prince of Wales, they're pressurising Liddell to run and go against his beliefs. But as I say, he's adamant, and it doesn't look like there's any way forward.
We have to explore ways in which we can help this young man to reach that decision.
I'm afraid there are no ways, sir. I won't run on the Sabbath, and that's final.
But thankfully, Nigel Avers, Lord Lindsay, who's already won a silver medal in the 400 metre hurdles, not the turtles, he comes to rescue.
The 400 metres, it's on Thursday. I've already got my medal, so why don't you let Eric take my place in the quarter?
So, problem solved. Liddell swaps events and goes into 400. Now, presumably, Jonathan Edwards didn't have that option. Weren't easy to swap from triple jump to another event. So, when it came to the 1993 World Championships, and the qualifying rounds were on a Sunday, a man of principle like that, he's going to refuse to compete, ain't he?
But then in 1993, I made the decision to jump on a Sunday.
Righto.
The hard thing about that decision was not so much the theological issues about was it right or wrong, but what would people think? Would they look at me and somehow think I'd compromised my faith just to try and be a better athlete?
I'm sure nobody thinks that, Jonathan. Nobody thinks that. Any road, the scene is set for Abrams and Lego to do their stuff on the biggest stage. Now I reckon the two actors in the main roles, Ben Cross as Harold Abrams and Ian Charlson as Eric Lego, I reckon they're both excellent in this. Very plausible as the runners. And the races, I think they're filmed really cleverly because they're either end on, so you can't see how far ahead people are from each other, and you can't really see how fast the legs are going. Or they're done in slow motion. And as I've mentioned before, it can be difficult filming actors running like donkeys, but they're supposedly quicker than the other actor they run alongside, who's blatantly more athletic than them. It's not easy. Interesting to note the different styles and all. When Abrams is running, he looks very sort of determined and chiselled. He's got a very chiselled jawline. Sort of running like this, sort of going like that when he's running. But when Lego's running, he has this thing he does when it gets near the end and he goes into his super duper turbo sprint. He rocks his head back and starts catching flies with his gob. It's sort of like that. And apparently he did run like that for real. So yeah, great attention to detail. It feels like they've had that attention to detail throughout the film. You know, the costumes, the sets, they all look great. It feels like the 1920s. I mean, I say it feels like the 1920s. Obviously, I weren't knocking around in the 1920s, so, you know, I don't know. No jokes, I weren't. Okie-do, 1-2 raise ratings. Well, this one, Oscars, isn't it? Chariots of Fire. So by the time I got round to watching it, it had a lot of hype. So my expectations were high. So I expected a 4-star film. But I've got to say, I weren't disappointed. I thought it was terrific. It didn't feel like your cliche sports film. Although, you know, the main characters did have to overcome some stuff, you know, and had their struggles and that. But, yeah, I just found the historical side of it fascinating and enjoyed learning about what happened to these blokes. And I thought the sets and costumes and all that were great because it really did feel like the 1920s. And as for the music, well, iconic. That's all I can say. So, yeah, I'm rating Chariots of Fire a 4-star film. Now, something I didn't mention were the American team, because there's this great training montage with them, doing all the newfangled, innovative training techniques, all set to an inspiring synthesizer soundtrack. Got to say, it reminded me a little bit of the music during the Jigsaw Man training montage. You remember the one where Michael Caine is demonstrating his supreme athleticism? Now I need to do a bit of exercise, and I ain't done a training montage for a bit. So yeah, let's give some of these innovative training techniques a go. Oh, properly got a bead on doing that. I think I've earned myself a nice refreshing drink of Ribena. Oh, bollocks! Well, I hope you enjoyed my review of Chariots of Fire Ravers. And if you did, poke the old like button for me. Give it a good old poke. Maybe use a walking stick like Sam Musabini and poke it with that, yeah. And remember to share reviews with your mates and subscribe to the channel if you ain't already a subscriber. Very much appreciated. As were all the fantastic suggestions from the patrons over on Patreon. Many thanks for those. And if you want some of your review ideas considered for the rotating review randomiser, get over to Patreon and become a nickel patron or a patron. That will be hugely appreciated, as are all the wonderful comments you lot keep popping on. Really does make me day reading them. Thank you very much indeed. So, copyright box permitting, I'll be back with another review for you very soon. So I will see you next time. Okie doo!